I'm so excited to welcome you to today's Success Mindset Live. So we are here every Wednesday to support you with mindset tips, success principles, and helping you to be the most exceptional version of yourself. And I'm very, very excited today. We have a special session today. My guest today is a wealth manager, an author, a podcast host, and I have to say also, I've gotten to know her over the last few weeks, an absolutely A+ human being. And I was so touched by her personal story, and which she has turned into this amazing mission of impact out in the world. And our topic today is take charge of your financial life. And I want all of you who are listening to listen through. Please stay through to the very end because we've got some special things to share. So please stay through to the very end. Welcome, Kimberlee Davis. Welcome to Success Mindset Series.
Stephanie, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to share this opportunity with you and you allowing me to join your group to share my life story and all the other stuff that I'm up to these days. I feel it's such an honor. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And Kimberlee, I'd love it if you would start with telling us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Right. So I've had several career iterations, given that I'm a little bit long in the tooth. I have had many different careers along the way. So my background essentially is I graduated from Georgetown Law School in 1983. And from there, I went on to be a corporate securities lawyer on Wall Street. And I did that for several years. Then I decided I kind of wanted to be more on the business side of things. So I transitioned into investment banking. And I did that because I also had kind of a quantitative background and I was getting very tired of writing long papers as a lawyer. So, but actually my law degree has always held me in very good stead and has been a great asset. Then from there, I did get married and I have 3 children. They are all in their late 20s and early 30s now, 2 lawyers and a personal trainer. And at that juncture, one of the first decisions I made that would have like a very big impact on my life occurred because I was staying at home initially. And then my ex-husband, who I was married to for about 24 years, was asked to move to England, and it was supposed to be for 2 years. So I agreed to this. I had 3 children under the age of 6. And needless to say, 30 years later, he still lives there. I ended up living there 14 years. This had a huge impact on my career development or lack thereof in my chosen field. So I literally had moved to a country where I didn't know anyone. I had to get my children acclimated. And so this was one of the mistakes I've made along the way, because instead of coming back at 2 years, because he had 2 passports, we were able to stay. So long story short, I lived there. I did have a couple of jobs there. I did start a fashion company. It was relatively successful. The clothes were sold at Saks Fifth Avenue. I love clothes. And weirdly, I was the accidental fashion designer. And that's a whole other discussion. And I did work in a big school because I'm passionate about education. But long story short, I decided to come back to the United States. The marriage was not doing very well. I didn't want to grow old there. And I came back, but then I had to go through a divorce process in England, going back and forth for 3 or 4 years. And I had no credit here because I hadn't lived here for a long time. I had no experience here since I had moved, and I was in my early 50s. The divorce occurred. It was painful and long. 2 ex-lawyers getting divorced is always going to be litigated for sure. And the decree came down. I got my child support. I got my alimony. But 6 months after that, for reasons that I again, for all kinds of reasons, my ex-husband stopped paying the alimony and then claimed all sorts of things and then took me back to court. So needless to say, I had 1 child in college and 2 kids in high school, and I was kind of responsible. He literally stopped paying money. And even though you can go against him, which we ultimately had another court case. It cost additional legal fees. I didn't have money to keep getting court orders against him. So this caused a financial Armageddon in my life. And I had returned to the United States. I was trying to find a job and I was trying to make ends meet. And after applying to about 100 jobs, because there were not, there was no lineup of people wanting to hire a 53-year-old woman, even with my resume. I finally got a job at Morgan Stanley and as a financial advisor. And that is what I am today. I've been doing that for about 11 years. And it's a great mixture of all my talents. So the capital markets knowledge, my legal background, and my people skills, because I do love working with people. So that is what I'm doing today. It was a circuitous journey to get here, but that's where I landed.
Oh, Kimberlee. And I think that, when we first spoke and you shared with me your personal story, and especially, of being on the brink of financial ruin. And I have to say, what touched me so much was your willingness to be so honest, because I think there's a lot of shame around that topic, right? So how did you get past that to be so willing to, become almost like a mission driven in this area?
First of all, I had 2 kids in high school and 1 in college, and they had already been disrupted. Like, they wanted to come to the United States as well, and they were old enough to make that decision by the law. But, I went from having money, in England, we lived in a nice house, we did well, to coming back to the United States, starting off with what I thought was an agreement with my ex-husband as to how this was going to materialize. And then he changed that 6 months once I got here. And I then did not have the access to money that I previously had. So I was doing things like selling my jewelry and downsizing and doing everything I could to just pay those tuitions. And that also, and I was trying to pay legal fees. So then I'm incurring credit card debt, and I'm doing all those things that are just like literally a swirl, you're just going down. And this caused me great stress. I did not sleep for years. I mean, I would say for 4 years, I got up every night at 3 a.m. And I just would think, how is this going to end? Are we going to be homeless? Mm-hmm. And I was, but I was drinking more than I should because, I was just stressed out. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a couple of things that helped me to fit. Because one day I just woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I was just like, you know what? I am so tired of being paralyzed by fear. I am so tired of being afraid 24/7 every day of the week. So I'm just going to throw this up to the universe now. And whatever opportunities fall in front of me, I'm going to capitalize on. And I'm going to make getting a job in my wheelhouse my job. And I literally had to remove my ego. And simultaneously with this, and I want to talk about that point in a minute, but I was talking to my therapist. I had a therapist in London I've been working with. And so we were kind of doing it over the phone because I didn't want to start all over again here. And she just kept saying to me, you have to leave the victim mentality. You are not a victim in this. You have low self-esteem because you've made some poor decisions along the way. You've taken your eye off the financial ball during your marriage. Now you're at, you're behind the 8 ball, but you're not a victim. You're still in control of your life. But honestly, I was so bitter and angry that I felt like a victim and I was feeling sorry for myself and worried. And until I had that moment where I woke up, I was tired of being a victim. I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of everything. And then I was just like, you know what? I give up. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but I'm going to just put myself out there and see what comes of it. So with that, I did apply for many jobs. And some people told me to take off my legal background. They told me that I was overqualified at 53, that people weren't going to hire me. And I refused to do that. I was like, I worked too hard for those designations, for that career experience. And I'm not 100. I'm just 53, for goodness sake. So I did I applied from everything from being a perfume saleswoman at Neiman Marcus, which I might add, they did not give me a job. I think they thought I was going to do a hostile takeover or something, to, being a district manager for Starbucks, to being a business development person, to being a CFO. I mean, I was just like, if I saw something that was kind of remotely interesting / in my wheelhouse, I was just applying. So with some divine intervention, I did get the Morgan Stanley gig. And that was a combination of putting myself out there, also networking with anyone who would talk to me. And I happened to reach out to a woman on LinkedIn who I knew couldn't really particularly help me because she was a headhunter for companies. She represented companies, but I left her this long drawn out message. And she literally called me back saying, no one's ever left me a message quite like that. And I felt like I needed to help you. And we had lunch. And then it turned out that her husband was a senior vice president at Morgan Stanley in the office I was applying to, and had gotten an interview for. And then from there, it all happened. So it was just this combination of firing on all cylinders, not saying no to anything, and then just realizing like whatever happened in our second court case, which I might add did not turn in my favor, because by then I did have a job at Morgan Stanley and that was literally held against me. So basically my child support went down to like $20,000 a year and I got no alimony, even though I wasn't even making that much money. I just started at Morgan Stanley, but I did have health insurance. So there was that. But I know what it's like to live from paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have a lot of money. And then I was in this position where I had to wait for my rent check to clear so I could put gas in my car, so I could still have money to pay my kids' tuition and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, it is riveting, your story. And the truth is that you lived it. You lived it firsthand. And, I was just writing down some notes here. So your therapist told you you're not a victim. So it sounds like you really started to internalize that. You had that sort of moment of truth where you just were like, I am so tired of, of this.
Right. I'm tired of someone else controlling my narrative.
Yeah. And the reason I'm, sort of highlighting that, and then you mentioned you're firing on all cylinders, taking action, you're networking, you're putting yourself out there. What a great example of perseverance and tenacity, but also that you surrendered. You finally, because I think that's one of the things that keeps people stuck, is they want to control everything. And sometimes we have to trust and surrender.
And it was difficult in those years because I did keep my two daughters in high school, in a high school that was, it was a private high school, but that's what they were used to in England. And it was just kind of trying to keep them in some realm that was their lane. And I remember, I would go to all the parents' functions, and there were some, I would look at all the other parents and they seemed to have like nice marriages and so much money. And I was just trying to get through the day, and I had tried to get some financial help from the school, and I had to lose my ego in this. And I did feel shame. I did. And I had to really talk myself out of that, because I had to put these two kids, three kids, one was at Georgetown, so that was a huge number. I had to put their best interests before my own ego. And then I also had to put my interests before my own ego. I knew I was going to have to start at the bottom. And even at Morgan Stanley, I got hired. The guy told me, really, we can't really, you have a lot of great qualifications, but you're just going to have to prove yourself here. We're not going to really give you any credit for what you've done before. They also hired a couple other people that day, and I know what they were making, and I got paid the lowest. And so I had to leave the ego at the door, or it would have been my undoing, because I would have just been kind of annoyed, and that would have undermined my, my desire to move ahead and try to make my life better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kimberlee, you are truly a living example of putting mindset and success principles to work, going from that victim thinking to where you are today. And I'd love to now jump over to your amazing work with the Fiscal Feminist. Would you please tell us about that?
Right. So as I developed my wealth management business at Morgan Stanley, I joined a group called the Bonson Group. We were at Morgan Stanley, and there were four of us, and we left, and we became an independent advisory group. So now we're called the Bonson Group. I'm now managing director and partner in that group. We manage almost $5 billion, and we've really flourished in that business, and I flourished in that business. Between I knew I was going to have to work really, really hard to be successful because it's a tough business, and there are still only 25% of people doing it are women. So as I grew my book of business and I became more successful in wealth management, I kind of woke up one day and thought, you know what? I want to do a platform for women. And I want, of all economic strata, just not people who can be clients of the Bonson Group or Kimberlee Davis. And I want to help those women not go through what I went through. I don't want any woman to ever be paralyzed by fear because of her circumstances, or because she's a stay-at-home mom, or because she's not advocated for herself in the workplace, whatever the reason. And I started really getting obsessed with this notion of, trying to have a platform for women, because I don't think women are spoken to as much about money. And I think the historical narrative about what women should be and how our rights have developed over the hundreds of years, we have not been economic players for that long. And I also think we don't speak to our children, our girls and our young women the same about money as maybe we do their male counterparts. Plus, there are a lot of obstacles for women. Like, the gender pay parity, we still make 82 cents on the dollar. It's going to take 135 years for that to get equalized. That's a long time. There's still some segregation in job choices. There's the motherhood penalty. When women have a child, their pays go down 4%. When men have a child, their pays go up 6%, because we still believe men are the providers, even though 45% of breadwinners are women. There's the invisible labor issue. We still do 75% of all the household work and caregiving, even when we are the primary breadwinner. And then there's the historical narrative. So I wanted to create a program that spoke to women, that was like a roadmap of things that they should be thinking about to be proactive in their life, so that their money wasn't controlling them, but they were controlling their money. And then also that they were thinking about their money and money in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a victim of gray divorce, and there's a lot of women getting gray divorces now. That's getting a divorce in your 50s and your 60s and onward. This
Mm-hmm.
affects your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in being very transparent in how you speak about money in your relationships. So if you're going to cohabit with somebody or get married, you need to have these conversations prior to that. Know your money personality, know the money personality of your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are the most astute personal finance person and budgeter and manager of your personal finances, if you commingle money in a really careless way, it can bring the whole house of cards down. So this for me is about supporting women and trying to educate them and be a voice that they can listen to for educational purposes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, wonderful. And just as you were going through that list of, the things that are happening to women in our culture that we're not even often aware of, I have to say, I was shocked as you were, kind of delineating all those items. Yeah. And actually, I have a copy of your book here. And first of all, I'm so impressed with the thoroughness of it. And the amount of time, the detail that you've put into this. And I love at the end where you say, conclusions, say yes, and then say yes again and again. Yes to being master of your fate and seeing CEO of your life. Yes to being a boss. Yes to freedom and independence. And you're just such a great voice for that. Yes, for women. So what would be the number one piece of advice that you could, if there is a number one piece of advice that you give women, what might that be?
So my number one piece of advice is that you aren't allowed to not know about your finances, whether it's your personal finances or your finances in a marital or cohabiting partnership, whatever it is, because ignorance is not bliss. So I am a victim of this mistake. And I was someone who had a financial background. I worked on Wall Street, but yet when I was in that relationship, I stopped looking at the money. I stopped looking at the tax returns when I signed them. I didn't know all the accounts that we had. And whether it's a divorce or death or whatever, that really was detrimental to me in the end. I mean, really has affected my retirement. I am going to be playing catch up for my retirement for a very long time. I mean, I'm very open about that. I'll be working till the day I drop dead to make up for all the lost time and all the lost money that was involved in this divorce. But your partner isn't your plan. You are your plan. And if you just need to know who you're partnering up with, who are they? What are they about? It's not unfeminine to talk about money. You need to advocate for yourself, not only in the home, but in the workplace. Negotiate for that better salary, ask for that job, that step up in job, even if you're on the brink. When men feel they're 60% qualified, they put themselves up for a job. Women feel like they have to be 100% qualified. Right. So, give yourself some grace, but advocate for yourself and take control. Do not fall into that old narrative that someone's going to take care of you. That is a narrative from the patriarchy. And I don't want to sound like some crazy old feminist, even though I probably am a crazy old feminist. But, that is an old narrative and It isn't beneficial to you. If somebody, who has the gold makes the rules. And if you don't know what's going on, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. I tell all of the people, I talk a lot about prenups. That's part of the book as well. But make sure that if you are going to step out of the workforce, there's a formula in that prenup for 401k contributions you're missing, Social Security that you're no longer contributing to, fact that your career is going to take a hit if you're out of the workplace for a while. Whether you're a man or a woman, you should have that in your prenup. But it's just about stepping up, being proactive, not being fearful of money and the money conversation, and not feeling like speaking about it and advocating for yourself is somehow unfeminine, because that's just not right. Being feminine doesn't mean you have to be weak or not informed.
Wow. Yeah. And Kimberlee, we do have some men in the group, and just hearing you speak, I'm sure they can benefit from some of this information as well. But is there any advice that you want to share with men more specifically?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think everything I write about, and I do have male followers because my whatever I'm talking about is equally applicable to men. Absolutely. I just happen to call it the Fiscal Feminist because I do want women to wake up and try to listen. And if I don't make it towards them, maybe their eyes will glaze over and they'll be like, yeah, I don't want to listen to whoever. But for men, I would say this. If you are a man in a relationship, try to support women at home. Have open conversations about sharing the workload within the household, because I think that's why a lot of women get burnt out. They're trying to do it all and they don't really step up and talk about it with their partners. So if men are open to it and can help out, that would be great. I also think I have had a male mentor. David Bonson, who's the managing partner of our group, I mean, he has mentored me and made me a very competent wealth management person. And if you have women in the workplace that need mentors, help them out, help make them be better professionals. We need our male mentors because that's going to give us our hand up so that we can mentor ourselves. And so that's it. And I'd also say when women advocate for themselves, I would ask men not to get frustrated by that or think that women are the B word because they're sticking up for themselves. They're just doing what men do. It's just somehow if we seem a little bit too forthright or a little bit too aggressive because we're sticking up for ourselves, and all of a sudden it's not, again, I want to say people will think it's not feminine or we're just being, whatever, bitchy, whatever the word is that people use. And I would ask men to take a step back and say, well, if it were me, would I be advocating under these circumstances? Right. And yeah, you probably would be. And everyone would say, you're just you're a real cool dude who's sticking up for yourself and being a man. So that's what I would say to our male compatriots. We're all in this together. That's when women do better economically, the whole global economy does better. It's a fact. I mean, I can run those numbers for you all day, every day. So the whole economy benefits, we benefit. Also, I'm going to put this out there. If you are a man, think about when you're voting as well. This childcare cliff that's happened, a lot of people are, and this is going to affect men too. A lot of people who had childcare aren't going to be able to afford it anymore. That means one of the people in that relationship are going to have to take on more childcare responsibilities. So think about these issues that affect women and the family and you, because this again will affect your bottom line. So, when women flourish, we all flourish.
That's
We
right.
have better families. We have a better economy. And I think men actually benefit. And I do want to add one thing. You can find the book, The Fiscal Feminist, A Financial Wake-Up Call for Women, on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, all your bookstores. But for the first 5 people that email me at kim@thefiscalfeminist.com, I will send you a book to your address for free. My compliments. And I would love for people to reach out. So the first 5 people that reach out to me, I will send you a book immediately. And also you can check me out on my podcast, The Fiscal Feminist. We do that every week. I'm on Instagram, The Fiscal Feminist, TikTok, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Kimberlee Davis. But those are all the ways that you can reach me.
Good.
But I just want to before this ends, I just want to interject that I would love to give 5 books away.
Yes. And like I said, I've got my own copy here. It's very, very comprehensive. It's a really great resource. And we'll type your email address in the comments so that the first 5 people can be in touch with you for sure. So any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
It's funny. When I was going through the darkest of the darkest days of my divorce, my oldest daughter was a freshman at Georgetown. Maybe she was a sophomore. I can't remember, but whatever. She was studying in English, the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. And she sent me this poem and she said, Mom, she emailed it to me. She said, I read this poem and it made me think of you. And the last 2 lines of it say, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So my last words to everybody is, we can make our lives be whatever we want them to be. And I'm not saying it's easy. Okay. It sucked what I went through. I was like, honestly, the fact that I'm not a raving alcoholic is amazing, because I was wondering. But I will just say this, if we don't love ourselves enough to take control of our lives, if we don't think enough of ourselves that we deserve the best life possible and that we shouldn't have other people pulling the strings of our lives, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, And you and I have spoken about this. I'm a big believer in visualization. Visualize where you want to be and then work backwards. And that's what I do now. I do that in my business. I do that with the Fiscal Feminist platform. I do that when I'm thinking about something I might want to do that's special. Just worship yourself enough to put yourself out there and to treat yourself well by advocating for yourself and taking control of your life.
Wow. And Kimberlee, I can't wait to see where you'll be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, and the impact that you're going to have through this platform. I mean, the work that you're doing literally changes lives, right?
I hope so. One
Really
person walks away today and says, you know what, I'm fed up and I'm going to change this thing up.
Right.
I would say, please go do it. Believe in yourself, because if you don't do it for yourself, no one else is going to do it.
That's right. So the first 5 people to email you, it's kim@thefiscalfeminist.com.
Correct.
Will receive a complimentary copy of Kimberlee's wonderful book, The Fiscal Feminist. And you can find her on Instagram, LinkedIn, your podcast, which is called the Fiscal Feminist. And then your website is
fiscalfeminist.com. It doesn't have the in it. So it's just www.fiscalfeminist.com. You can communicate with me through that website. And you can also DM me on Instagram. I will answer and respond to all of those as well.
Oh, Great, great. Well, Kimberlee, I am so grateful, number one, that you and I connected on LinkedIn.
And we were networking, right?
I
On
know.
LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm just so grateful to have you as my guest today. And hopefully you'll be back often to share your wisdom with the group. And for everyone here listening, go back and listen again. There are so many nuggets here that I want to be sure you've captured them. And remember that exceptional is inside of you. It's a matter of drawing it out, bring it out to the surface. Thank you, Kimberlee. Thanks to all who are here. Bye for today.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.